You spent countless hours in the garage with your dad. Now investing in that old car and working on it with your son reminds you of him. And his legacy lives on. Fund your passion with a low-interest home equity line of credit from Bank of Blue Valley.
Whoa!
Whoa. It's a little bit better, but you still look like a ghost.
Yep, I did not plan this out. I left my computer at a secret location in North Kansas City, and I had to really hurry to get here. But
here you are.
You shouldn't speed like I did. But Erin, how are you doing? I like the post you did.
What? Oh, my post?
I like the post you did. I like the picture of you.
Oh, yes. I'm speaking at Digital Summit. Yes, I'm very excited about that. The keynote that I tagged on that, she's one of my favorite speakers. So if you are in Kansas City and you're interested in marketing in November, Digital Summit is back. I have not spoke since I spoke in Vegas the week before COVID at a marketing conference. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's been a while. I took a couple of years off speaking. Yeah.
I'm having to say, we have some folks that are coming.
We just talk about how casual we are in the show these days. I'm in a hoodie. You're in a t-shirt.
KC Current, they're breaking attendance records, and I'm curious if our sponsors Burns McDonnell and Bank of Blue Valley had anything to do with the KC Current. I'm not sure. I feel like they're involved in everything.
Have you been to a game?
I have not.
Okay, well, I'm a lesbian, so clearly I've gone to a few of them, right? Because we show up to support. But I will tell you something I did not know is that our goalie for the KC Current is the U.S. national women's team's goalie. She is a bad mama. She's good.
I've seen the marketing and promo videos, and they are insanely good. It's really cool to have them in Kansas City, and it's just, so inspiring. I'm literally 7 minutes from them right here, being in North Kansas City, but it's really centrally located when you think about it. Much more centrally located than the other sports stadiums in town.
Right. Yeah. No, it's so fun. I'm excited for their new stadium. This year it was at Children's Mercy, so it was a good time. But okay, here is the deal. If you are here watching, we want to know. It's like one of the last summer days, so I didn't know how many people are going to show up, but it's still so hot out. So I was hoping we got a lot of people. But let us know if you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and who you're excited to see. I've never met any of our guests before.
Ooh, they're all insanely popular and well-known in Kansas City. So it'll be exciting for the audience to tune in. And we always say, for those of you that get the Anchorman reference, if you put it up there, we're probably going to read it.
Nobody gets that except for you and your buddies. Okay, well, here is the deal. Let's get everybody in. But real quick, I do want to tell you an amazing story about Bank of Blue Valley yesterday.
Yeah.
So I have an account there. And I went there to do something, and I put my driver's license in the tube and all the stuff in the tube, right? And then I was in a hurry because it was Dev's birthday. I was trying to get a bunch of things done. And I'm not sure still what happened to my driver's license, but you know how you're like in a last-ditch effort, like maybe I'll call this place and see if I left it there. Do you know that they stopped, everybody there today stopped everything they were doing to try to find my driver's license and kept sending me messages, hey, we've checked here. We had another idea, we've checked here. Unfortunately, I don't think my driver's license is there. I'm pretty sure it's probably somewhere in my car. But there was it was such incredible customer service. It just was really impressive.
Yeah, we had a listener from St. Louis chime in to say, hey, you need to remember to talk about, even though Bank of Blue Valley is a community bank, they service people all throughout the country and their capacity is really large. And I was like, how did you know that? And so, I think, I don't think we do a good enough job of showing people that, they're one of the top 10, I think maybe top 5 largest institutions in Kansas City. So very blessed to have them. And if you know anyone that is looking in this soon to be a little bit recession, Burns McDonnell has over 1,000 open positions. And their ESOP program is one of the best employee stock programs that you could ever find your way into. So please make sure you go to their website and check them out.
It's only a recession if your mindset says it is. Especially those of us in sales, right, Scott?
That's right. You can sell your way out of anything.
Sell your way out of anything. I never even felt the last recession because I was in property management. So many people moved into apartments. So I thought 2008, we were doing really good. All right, here we go. You guys ready? You want to play? You weren't.
That's part of the show.
weren't at the pre-show, but I already told everybody on the panel today how cheesy this music is. All right, here we go. I hate it. I hate it so much.
It takes a little while to get teed up.
Oh, God. All right, we're going to go ladies first. I'm going to bring everybody in. Boom, boom, boom. You ready? Oh, hold on. We got a comment. Like fire. Watch on LinkedIn. All right. Sadie, Dan, and Dawn. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us. How are you today?
What's up? Awesome. Great.
Yeah. Good.
Well, listen, I warned you guys about the music. Was it as bad as I said it was?
No, it just has a 1980s vibe.
It's very 80s vibe. That's why Scott loves it. All right, well, let's just jump into it. Sadie, who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
Yeah, sure. Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Sadie McCue is my name. So I am an enterprise customer success manager at SafetyCulture, which is an Australia-based company. Our HQ, though, is here in none other than Kansas City. So that's really what my day-to-day is. Grew up here, born and raised. Went to school at Mizzou, and then headed out to Denver, Colorado for a few years before moving back to Kansas City, just to be closer to my roots and in the community. So I've been back here for about 4 years now.
So Sadie, where is your office located? And did that have anything to do with your decision to work there? And then secondly, can you tell everyone about your involvement with The Loop and other organizations within Kansas City? A lot of audience members want to know how to get involved.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. So my office is currently located in my living room, but we're hybrid model. So I go into the office a couple days a week. We just recently opened a new floor. We're down there in the crossroads, the same building as HOK. It's a really, really, really great space. We have pickleball court and, booze when appropriate. It's a great time. And then I work from home about 2 days a week. And then as far as The Loop goes, so The Loop, it's really a young professionals group. So I got situated with The Loop back about 4 years ago, I guess, when I first moved to Kansas City. Emerson Hodis had sat down with me, who is also from here. We grew up together, and we were both fresh back to KC as adults, trying to figure out how to make it in Kansas City, how to grow our networks. And so The Loop began with just a few of us and just started recruiting people. One person brought a couple of friends who were in different industries, and then another brought a couple of friends that were in different industries. And it's really grown organically. We probably have 120 or so people today. We meet regularly, formally, and then also just for more recreational type activities. But it's been a really, really, really incredible way to just integrate back into the KC community and learn what everyone's doing. So it's a great organization.
How many locations do you guys have throughout the city? Throughout the country? And what is one thing that when moving back to Kansas City, you did not expect?
Yeah, it's good. Both good questions. So as far as locations we have in the States, everyone is here local to Kansas City. So we service clients globally. We have north of 30,000 customers, from mom and pop to some really big enterprise names. And then but we're serving them all out of KC. And then your second question, Scott,
what was one thing coming back from Denver when you moved back to Kansas City that you didn't expect moving back to Kansas City?
Yeah. I think just how many businesses and entrepreneurs and just extremely happy I am in Kansas City. I thought, when I moved out to Denver, I was totally going out there for the tech scene and the music scene and the breweries and the hiking. And reality is we have all of those things outside of maybe the hiking. If you go up to Parkville, you can certainly get that, or down to Northwest Arkansas area. But I've been so pleasantly surprised with Kansas City. There's a lot of people that have moved here also from other cities, which I think I was surprised by as well. Is we've got a lot of transplants here, similar to what I was in Denver.
Hiking is just walking. You can just go walk. I've never understood hiking, really. I feel like you can walk. There's some trails around here.
It's true. And that's what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, both Scott and I are big supporters of the Loop. So some of our team members are in it too.
Awesome.
Amazing. All right, Dan, who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
Yeah, you bet. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Stalp, and I own a Sandler sales training practice here. And we basically work with sales and sales leaders in professional development. That's our rifle shot focus. And what's a little bit different about what we do is that people tend to stay with us for years rather than 2 hours or 2 days. And so to really change behaviors, new habits, attitudes, it takes time. So it's kind of a microcosm of people that we work with, but we really get to know them very well and really can have an impact. So we moved here 29 years ago. We were living up in Omaha at the time, and we just had our first child, and she just got married a couple weeks ago. And but my wife was getting a PhD in clinical psychology and needed to do a 1-year internship, and she was her specialty was neuroscience. So she ended up working down here at KU Med for her internship. And then we decided, since we were expecting and stuff, rather than coming down here and moving back, we were just going to make a go of it. And fast forward 29 years, we're still here.
So, Dan, the thing I always tell people about being on the show is like, hey, Aaron Fulk puts a lot of marketing into it, and we have these sponsors that are really well known. And when you Google someone, it will pop up. But when you're Dan Stalp, I mean, you have like 4 Google pages. You're like Aaron, where you have all these awards and things that you have won. And I know you give the credit away, but, I think the longevity of your ability to always be connecting and networking within Kansas City, what drives you? Obviously, then having 4 amazing children that you've put through private school and college that we always talk about. But what continues to drive you to always have a relentless desire to connect others?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. And I'm a lot older than Aaron, so that's part of it too. But you're right. There's a longevity piece there. I grew up in a small town in Nebraska, and it was I actually grew up on a farm, which always shocks everybody. I just can't see you on a farm. I go, yeah, me either. That's why I'm not there. But I did learn a lot on the farm, and then in small towns, everybody knows everybody, and they're in your business and all that kind of stuff. But I just always enjoyed like making friends. I've got 46 first cousins that I'm still pretty close to, most of them, and lots of aunts and uncles still. And so for me, it was just I enjoy. What drives me is just I'm curious. I like to meet new people. I'm interested in new people, and so Kansas City just expanded that for me. And so that's what drives me. Plus, in all fairness, it doesn't hurt my business. I mean, it's, I could sit and pound the phone all day, or I could meet people. And so I prefer to meet people.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I've always been in sales my whole life before I started my business, which I'm still in sales with that, I guess. But
yeah.
I remember back in the day, and I don't know if it just fell off my radar because now I send that CEO seat more than just the sales all the time seat, right?
Yeah.
But for a long time, it was a really big deal to be Sandler certified, right? Mm-hmm. So is that still a big deal? And what does that mean? Like, what is the meaning behind that?
Yeah, so certification, frankly, hasn't been around that long in Sandler. We've had it I guess it's probably been over 10 years. But some companies value it more than others, and it's just like if they're ISO 9000, they just really like that. So it does test your knowledge, and it also is a commitment and a step to a higher level. The other side of that is you could be certified and not using it enough to make a difference. So it doesn't guarantee anything. I think it's just added on, but the proof is really in the pudding. I mean, as your key performance indicators continue to get better and better and better, leading to sales, because sales always lags behaviors. That's where people are actually using it versus knowing it. So that's one of the things that we're really, why people stay with us longer, is to master it and not just know it. You can pass a test and not be using it.
Okay, I have another question.
Yep.
You ready? This is like where I geek out then. Okay, back in the day when I was selling windows and all the fun stuff, they used to say I sold Pella windows for a while, and I went to Pella, Iowa for training. And I remember they beat it in our head that it takes 7 to 12 times to get to the yes or no. And then I recently read God, within probably the past 2 years, so it's probably even higher now, that it takes 26 touch points to get to that yes or no. Clearly, you can't call someone 26 times or you're going to jail, right? And that's where I usually pop in and I go, that's social media. What are some of the different things that you see hitting up that 26 times? Because your industry's changed a lot too with all of
it. It has. Yeah. Well, first of all, what you're referring to are touches. That doesn't mean it has to be a phone call. It could be, like you said, marketing. And it doesn't have to happen 20 consecutive times in 20 days because that's how you get thrown in jail. So the reality of it is that if you just looked at the course of a year, and we're all about like cadences, like do 3 cadences. And if they don't respond, give it a rest, start it back up in 90 days. Because evidently there was nothing there. In 90 days, something could change. The person could leave, a new person could come, they could have a problem, and then do it again. But if you do that 3 times every 3 months, you're already at about 14. And then if you're marketing to them, you're at 20. But the reality of it is once you meet somebody, it doesn't take 20 times. I mean, you either engage or you don't engage. So that's just more of that it can take, the Midwest does take a little bit longer. But once you meet with them, the goal is do they want to do it or not? And it's okay if they don't want to do it. No is our second favorite answer.
Okay, I have one last question, Scott. You can ask questions. What is the number one quality that you see in someone you're like, they're going to be a good salesperson?
It's a kind of a toss-up, but I know you wanted one, but I'm going to say ambition and drive. But the second best one is accepts responsibility, it's a toss-up. Because you can have somebody that's just got a passion for things, and that's really what you need in sales is just a passion to be the best you can be and want to win without somebody losing. But if I don't accept responsibility, I know we're not supposed to swear, but you become that person. If you're that way and you don't accept responsibility, you become a word that I can't say on here. So the reality of it is that you want to have both, because when they don't take responsibility, it's a really bad deodorant.
Where does competitiveness fall within there on that scale?
That's within the ambition and drive. Yeah. And it can be with yourself. It doesn't have to be another person. Some people are just very competitive themselves. They want to be the best they can be, and those make great salespeople.
Yeah, I'll do a short question because I feel like I could have 10 questions. But one, I always say that with Dan's work, no matter what level you're at, including all of us on the call, I think when your mind is in class and it's at peak performance, I call it that 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. where you're really driving after that first coffee or whatever gets you going. Those exercise and wheels turning in those classes, I personally believe help you a lot, no matter what level you're at. But Dan, how often, we have all these entrepreneurs on, and you work with entrepreneurs, but you're an entrepreneur. How often do people just give you random business ideas? Like they're like, Dan, you should do this. And then how do you politely like share with them? You're like, oh, thank you, but I'm not going to do that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Not very often. I don't know why. And I'm not because I'm not open, but it tends to be the know-it-alls. And if they don't like the way you're doing something, then they think you should change their business to accommodate them, and they may or may not work with you. So that gets shut down pretty quick. I mean, there's just no point. You do what you want to do in your business. This is how we do our business. Well, I don't like that. Well, that's okay, because you don't have to do this. Nobody has to do anything. So if we change our businesses every time somebody wants something different, we're not standing for anything. And I think it's just good to just, like in sports, just stay in your lane. And they need to kind of stay in their lane sometimes. But some people are very helpful. Clients would say, well, what if this happened? And that can be like the next best thing to make us even better.
Nice. All right. Well, I think we could stay here all day, but you're like, I charge for this, guy, so quit asking me.
I want to hear what Don has to say.
Information. All right, Don, who are you? What do you do? How do you get to Kansas City?
Who am I is a great question. It's a question that I like to ask a lot because the reality, I think, is that it's a mystery. But how I got here, I was born in Kansas City, and lived my whole life minus several years when I was in the Bay Area, California. What do? I call myself a transformational executive coach. Have worked the last several years primarily with Black executives and entrepreneurs, helping them move into the next level of their own professional and personal evolution. I am formerly a police officer here in Kansas City. I spent 10 years as an officer and a detective. Left that in 2017 and just went on this wild adventure into my own evolution. I left law enforcement primarily because it wasn't the vehicle for me to serve in the way that I wanted to anymore. Just because I think that law enforcement is reactive by nature, and I went into it to really serve my community. Grew up in the urban core, even moved back to my old neighborhood that I grew up in when I was still a police officer. My colleagues thought that I was crazy at first, and we had some great adventures. But the reality of it is that I just wanted to be the kind of people that I wanted to live around, like for my family. And so we really started to make some connections, and just have some exciting things that occurred over the course of those few years. And then the way that I got into coaching when I was in California, I was working with a company called Baldwin, a Kansas City company that was expanding across the country. And I've been friends with them for a long time. And
was that the jeans company?
Yeah, the denim company. And I hadn't been in retail since I was like 16, but I thought it would be fun. And then they asked me to help open up a store in San Jose, which is how I ended up in the Bay Area. In that journey, just discovered a lot of really interesting things about people and life and community. In 2017, I had a story go viral on Facebook where I basically just helped raise money for a girl to go to nursing school, and it just kind of went crazy from the Popeyes drive-through. And what happened through that was that I discovered a few things. One, some of the traumas that I had endured during my law enforcement career, even though it was nothing spectacular, like it wasn't like I was injured or I saw a lot of things, but it wasn't those big things. It was just the inundation of dealing with people on an everyday basis that were at their hardest and worst times. And the effect that has on the human heart and mind really started to mount up. And by the time I was leaving was when the law enforcement community was starting to acknowledge PTSD and things of that nature. But I exited and then went into this kind of wild adventure where ended up on Steve Harvey's show and lots of national and international media just through this one story. And it just made me curious as to what in the heck was going on with people, that something that was seemingly simple was activating a whole lot of people. And so I just started to discover the deeper, more significant revelation of what kindness is and how it actually works toward healing and how that actually relates to our business. Because at the same time, I was getting involved in the startup community here in Kansas City, which with Google Fiber showing up kind of had its emergence. But then in 2018, I lost my wife of 14 years to suicide. And that was sort of the big kicker that threw me into this healing journey through grief, where I discovered so many more things. And I wanted to just be more available to my kids who are now 17 and 15. And when I made that decision is when I got into the coaching industry. And that was just after discovering how I had been leading that thus far, and that I've been doing some form of coaching pretty much my whole professional life. And so I started working with executives and entrepreneurs around really tapping into what their best was and how they can give that to the world. And specifically started working with Black executives and entrepreneurs just because those were the ones who were drawn to me the most. But what I've done since then is really opened up to emerging leaders in startups or in companies that are really looking to tap into that place that is unique to them and authentic to them, that will help them excel and bring about the greatest outcomes that they can for their work with the companies that they work with, even if it's just their own. And so that's a little bit about my journey. I'm excited to be back in Kansas City. I just moved back in 2021. And the reason that I moved back was for some of the things that Sadie was talking about. It's like coming home to community. Being in California, it was kind of difficult to create community or become a part of a community, especially through the pandemic. And so Kansas City is a great place. It's a special place. And so getting back here and getting reconnected with folks and starting to rebuild my network has been a fun adventure. So
Okay, I have 42 questions, Scott.
Don, real quick, just tell everyone where you went to high school, because I'm a history nut and I knew Aaron would have a ton of questions.
I went to Lincoln College Preparatory Academy.
That was actually one of my questions.
Lincoln on the Hill.
Has anybody on here watched From Paseo to Pembroke?
No.
Have you guys watched this? Okay, you guys need to watch this. It's now available on Amazon Prime. Carrington Harrison from 610 and some guys did it, and then Amazon Prime picked it up. It's called From Paseo to Pembroke. I think it's like $1.99, but it's about the good old days at Lincoln, Pembroke, wind out like when all the guys were playing basketball and how many of them went in, like the guys before the Rush Brothers up to the Rush Brothers, kind of those good old days. But it's really, really cool. But they do a lot on Lincoln on that show too. So watch it.
Yeah, I never heard of that.
Yeah,
I have not. I'm actually going to 31st and Troost with Father Justin after this show for getting 31 different leaders together, and I'm a huge history nut. But this is more with your friend Carrington that you're good buddies with. It's a lot of sports. Or is
it's all about the basketball. Like Kansas City was probably one of the top cities in the end of 80s, 90s for basketball. And it's about everybody that came out of here that we didn't hear their stories back then, and how some of the schools, like we heard a lot about the Rush Brothers, who are all also good friends of mine, because they went to Pembroke, but we didn't hear some of the other stuff, kind of got the Earl Watsons and some of those guys that have gone on to make a huge impact around the country in basketball. But it's really cool. And Lincoln Prep had some people there too. So you guys got to watch that. Okay. That was a side note. First of all, let me, I'm so sorry about your wife. It sounds like you're taking definitely tragedy and turning it into testimony. Do I see you still wearing your wedding ring?
Well, I've gotten remarried since then.
Oh, you're remarried.
Yeah, I got married last November. Met an incredible woman and had invited her into my family, and she's been super dope to have as a partner, and really helped me navigate some of that journey when I was in California. Suddenly a single father and really just finding my way after not expecting to be there without my wife. And so, yeah, the thing, turning tragedy into a testimony, that's a good way to put it. Really what I've discovered is that one of the things that we do when we encounter trials or difficult times is we are resistant to the process of healing for one reason or another. And, surrendering to that process is really what I think my edge is being willing to just let go. And it's informed some of my philosophies and ideas around grief and around pain. And it's the things that we go through as entrepreneurs and as business people that we tend to have a sense of dichotomy about, where we separate and compartmentalize, but we're just people at the end of the day. And so being able to honor that journey has actually excelled and accelerated my growth as an entrepreneur and as everywhere else, a father, a husband, and a community member and leader. It's fueled all of those things. So I don't even think I turned the tragedy into a testimony. When we allow ourselves to go through that process, it's just what occurs. And it's only when we resist the process of growth that we hamper ourselves. And so any of the limitations that we feel, I just believe are self-imposed. And so one of the things that I've done habitually now is just allow myself to be carried along by those things. And it's always proved to be better than before. And so lots of pain and lots of, you can even say it's tragedy, but getting the opportunity to grow and leverage those experiences into growth have been the things that have made the difference. And recently, I'm getting ready to release a book about that that I call Love with No Place to Land. And it's about being able to leverage that grief experience into growth. It comes out in November. And so I'm excited to share some more of the insights from that journey in that. So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, then shout out to your new wife, because that she has to not only love you, she has to love you to raise your teenagers. Because I got teenagers in my home.
You're not kidding.
It's a lot of commitment. All right, here's my other question. I'm in marketing. And in marketing, we have this saying that says the riches are in the niches. And then if you want to add a bad word because you're at a marketing conference and it's funny, you can do that at the end. The riches are the niches, okay? You have made it very clear 3-4 times. I coach Black executives, right? Black male. Did you say male? I don't remember if you said
I didn't
male.
say male, but that's actually who is drawn to me the most. But no, I've had clients of all types, and I still take clients of all types. But when I focus in my marketing, that's just what I niche down on, because there's a certain story that I can speak to fluidly, especially after being in law enforcement for that long and encountering some of those challenges and having the dexterity to speak about things in a more specific way. So yeah, the riches and the niches, I get that.
Yep. And you answered my question. I was just going to ask, why did you really pick to specify in that area? But I think you just answered that.
It was observing my market. So when I show up as a Black man who is speaking about being transparent and being very open about my healing and the challenges and not shying away from speaking about those kind of things, I think it was magnetizing to some of them. So I was actually surprised by it because I wasn't targeting that. And actually, I was even a little bit afraid of focusing in on it because I felt like I was missing out on a bunch, but there was really this interesting imposter syndrome that came up where it's like, who am I to just focus on this? Like, I don't even understand but being native to that experience, I've really seen a lot of breakthrough for my clients. And then obviously with the last several years of companies focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's just been this movement toward making sure that Black executives have a different kind of space. And so I've just leveraged that for myself. But then continuing to still expand into the broader markets, but being really specific still. I've learned the power of those niches for sure.
And then also when we talked about just from the business case of, working in a big organization, which is Kansas City, Missouri law enforcement, understanding the policies, processes, and procedures on top of your ability to mentor leaders and managers and executives. It's also working with HR as well.
Yeah.
Do you find that have you been tapping into that a little bit in terms of the organizations that you're serving on, not just the executive coaching, but kind of helping people through the process and procedures?
So I've started that. And that's something that I'm looking forward to for this next quarter into 2023 is to continue expanding into that a little bit more. My wife actually is, she works she's a division manager in the Department of Medicine for Stanford, and being really the only Black woman there, we get to actually have some of those dialogues. And she works with me some when she is not tied up with her work. But that's some of the next move is being able to consult for and to look into how an organization can really make their environment and culture one that allows their employees to be their best and to actually be more productive for the organization.
Yeah, and a fun side note, on November 3rd, The Loop and Top Gun Kansas City that you're a part of, Don, we always do a silly event at the end of the year. We're going to do a Western wedding in Westport. So not productive, not anything where we have a CEO speaker. It's just everyone, just some young folks getting together and meeting each other. So
I would argue that it is productive.
It is
in some of the most productive ways that giving people the opportunity to just be what they are and have a little fun. Those kind of connections are some of the most powerful.
I don't know what's going on in 2022, but I am so over the Western theme. The board, Scott and I sit on, have a Western gala. You're doing that. And my son today, his theme day was Western Day. Like, I thought we were past
We all came off Yellowstone during the pandemic. We all thought it was cool. It was like, you're like, tacky Christmas sweater, let's do it. And then you're like, oh, no, it's not cool anymore. So noted, but to our defense, we planned it last year. But you're right, Aaron, and that's why you're in marketing and it's trending.
Yes. My other new favorite theme is actual one I like is like the Zoom day where you dress really nice on top and then like pajamas at the bottom. That's a fun one too. All right. Listen, total side note, and then we're going to get to the Burns McDonnell question. I was the only female at our board meeting when they voted the Western, so I got voted out. Mine was come as your favorite Netflix character, and they all could have dressed as Yellowstone. So it just made me even more annoyed. So it's okay. All right, here we go. We're going to ask the Burns and McDonnell question of the day. As soon as we're done, Sadie, you answer.
All right.
Hi, my name is Lisa Diven, and I am a mechanical engineer at Burns & McDonnell, and I currently work on proposals for our oil, gas, and chemicals division. And my question today is, what does success look like for your business?
Sadie.
All right. Yeah. Dive on in. Success for my business. I think success, truthfully, is having the ability to set goals, whether they're organization set goals or goals for your customers that you're working towards achieving. It's like really having those intrinsic motivators as well, to where you can kind of take a step back. And Dan knows this well, I'm sure, having coached in sales, but take a step back, and when things don't go your way, you're still able to recognize the accolades and the outcomes that what you did achieve, and take it as an opportunity to learn and do better the next time. I know in my career, I started in sales at SafetyCulture, my current organization, and I did well. I was successful. I hit and exceeded quota. But then I ended up pivoting to the customer success side, because I found that what success meant to me was more than just the prospecting to the close of the deal. That felt good, but what I really loved was realizing the value and helping drive expansion through value. And that was an interesting kind of internal conversation with myself, as far as, okay, here's what the success is according to the JD, but here's what success is to Sadie. And so I think just continuously asking yourself those questions and kind of keeping in check what motivates you. And when you achieve something, continue to go after that, and the rest will follow.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. How about you, Dan? What does success look like to you?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I've written a few books about this, but I prefer to use the word significant. You can be.
You got to plug the books. You got to plug the books. It's the purpose of the podcast.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, success can sometimes be kind of a selfish thing, and I'm more about the impact part of it. And I think Don's story is a really good example of having impact. And if we're having impact, the success will follow. So for me, I kind of feel like we've got the cure for sales cancer. And so if I'm not talking about it, people don't know about it. And I have a lot of very nice people that help me with that. They just, if they hear anything about sales training, they think of me, but I can't just rely on that. So I personally just control the controllables. I make 5 outbound calls a day just to talk to somebody about what we do. That's because I have to do my part. But then after that, it's when we start working with them, and, not only impacting their professional lives in the way of, making quotas, keeping their job, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of what we do really helps them in their personal life too. It helps them be better parents, helps them be better spouses. It helps them be better friends, board members, because really at the end of the day, this is all about communicating effectively and getting to the truth. And so if we can get to more of the truth and be that safe space for them, then we can actually help them. And one of the organizations I belong to here in town is called the Hellsburg Entrepreneurial Mentoring Program. I've been a mentor there for about 9 years, and I'm going to steal one of their slogans. It's put your worst foot forward to get the most out of this. And so I've stolen that in my coaching too. If you're posturing and trying to convince me everything's hunky dory and not sharing with me what's going on, I can't help you. And so success to me is being that people feel safe with me, that they share what's really going on, so that we can actually help them get to where they want to go, not only in their professional life, but their personal life. And so for me, if I ever get like a card in the mail or an email, I just save it and I just put it in an attaboy file, because there's some days I'm like, what the blankety blank was I thinking doing this, and but then that reminds me of why I'm doing it, because it does get hard no matter how long you've been doing it.
So Dan, go ahead, Aaron.
No, go ahead. I already talked.
Public service announcement at the hemp program. You guys went to the Ilex Ranch, and you guys took a bus there, and Harry Campbell was not feeling so hot on the way back. And Harry Campbell's a good friend of the show, and he felt like his heart rate was escalating through his iWatch. And so he didn't want to go to the hospital that night. So he slept, and he slept fine. But then he went to go take a dog for the walk, and he only got one house down and had to go down to one knee. And then he went to the hospital, and they ran every test underneath the sun. They were making sure it wasn't a blood clot. And they came to him after a stress test, and they said, hey, we have some good news. You have 90% blockage on your main artery that 40% of your blood flow is coming from. And he goes, why is that good news? And they go, because we're operating on you in 10 minutes to save your life. And he's like, okay, I guess that's good news.
Wow.
Had coffee with him on Monday. I am going to my physical tomorrow and requesting a stress test. So for the men and women out there that may feel like they may have any heart issues, or maybe you were like me for 10 years, I was working really hard and I wasn't really caring about my diet in my 20s and early 30s. So I'm going to go do that. But since that story, I've heard many more of those stories. So you were just with a guy that almost had a widowmaker heart attack.
Yeah, I saw.
I would have really put a damper on your retreat.
Well, I didn't take the bus down. I stayed down there 2 nights. I hadn't even heard about this. There were people that stayed there 2 nights, and there were people that came down for the day. And I saw Harry, and I talked to him. Of course, he was fine at the time, but
thank goodness he went home. He didn't go on your hike that you guys. There's so many what ifs. So,
right.
But we'll transition to Don. No, he's going to transition. But
wait, I still have my question.
Sorry,
are you getting a new mentor this year at Hemp?
I've got my hat in the ring, and I've had a couple people reach out to me just literally today. So I'm going to reach out to them and find out what they're looking for. But yeah, I'm open to take on a new mentor.
I would like you to look at Brian Miller. He's one of my good friends.
Okay.
And I told him to apply, and he made it in.
Awesome.
So he's a great guy that owns a local printing company who was actually, this is why I think you'll love him. Ready for this? He was their sales guy. He's worked there for 24 years. He was their sales guy and saw that the business was going to go out of business because they weren't converting to digital options. Maybe a decade, 12 years ago. And he went to them and he said, I don't want you all to lose your business. I want to slowly buy out your equity so you can retire and this business doesn't fail. And now he's the business owner and he's just amazing. So look into him.
Sounds like a great guy.
Thank you. All right. Don, what does success look like to you?
I mean, it's really simple. Success to me is seeing my clients win. So that's where it is for my business. In a broader sense, I think success is really just continuing to get better and better. Like, I'm kind of a nerd, so I geek out on words often, really going to what they mean. And so when I think of success, I think of succession and just the ability to continue to go up. And I feel like we don't really know how great we can be. It's one of those things that, again, those limitations that we have are self-imposed. So if we're continuing to strive, that is what success looks like. So it can be process goals that are usually what I use to measure success on a daily basis. It's not the outcome. It's more of the journey. But for my clients, it's really just seeing them win. At the end of the day, you know, everyone has talked here about something that had to do with something personal. And I'll just go back to what I said before. Like, I really just feel like business is a sacred practice. And by that, I don't mean it's religious. I mean that there's this sacred aspect to it where it's always about one human being serving another human being. Even if you have some random widget for a machine that you use, the end user is always a person. And so when I keep that as my focus, I can show up and be present with the people that I'm in front of in a way that allows them to have that safe space, kind of like what Dan said, and allow them to just thrive in whatever's going on in their life at that time, which contributes to their overall success of the outcomes that they have in their business and in their work. So success is really just about continuing to get better and striving to just test that theory about, like, I don't really know how great I can be. Let me just keep going. And that's what keeps life feeling exciting and fulfilling.
Do you share with people, not necessarily the mental health side? I mean, that's something that kind of comes out in your experience with it, but do you share with them, the preparatory academy, law enforcement for 10 years, entrepreneurial world, Like, because I feel like when you share all that, do you share that information with people that you're mentoring after they're your client and now you have 5 people in their business? Because for me personally, like, I'm like, man, if I have a question, I'm going to be thinking of Don, not even that we work with each other, but just the amount of life that you've lived in a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you share that with the clients? You know, they hire you, they know your story, but do you share that with the people that you're coaching?
When it's relevant, in a coaching engagement, I'm not the focus, but I'm there. And so when it's time to, if there's something that's relevant with them into their journey, into their story, I always like to embody the things that I'm talking about, or at least model them. And so if I'm talking about being transparent, and there's some relevant piece of my story that actually applies to what's going on, I can ask for permission to share that and just open that piece up to where it creates a space where somebody feels like, oh, well, I can be here fully myself. And that's where I'll usually get something like, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because, and then they'll go into something where they have some insight instantly that allows them to overcome some challenge. So yeah, I do. I readily am available to, but it's not something that I lead with every time unless I think it's relevant. Scott.
Okay, I always got it. So Aaron drives the show, and I'm the color commentator, so he's got to make sure Aaron.
Well, I'm going to say something to that.
Yeah.
He's exactly right. There's nothing worse than having a coach and/or therapist that talks about themselves the whole time. I did that all during the pandemic because I was locked in a contract, and I'll tell you, I came out of that so bitter versus better, right? Because all I did is sit there and think, why am I not talking about me? I'm paying you, right? So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So if you're a coach out here and you find yourself talking too much, listen to Don. All right, Scott, go ahead.
I partner with all women because I'm a bad listener. So
you want me to tell you that over and over?
Oh, Erin helps me so much, and she will get off of a podcast or a meeting. She'll be like, you just need to stop talking. And it is good advice. But Sadie, what does your generation really feel that is success, or maybe something that is different than other generations in terms of what they think success is? I feel like freedom and flexibility is important. So I'm trying to just lead you to what do you
answer the question for you. This is what we're working on. And I would say, Dan, maybe you work on it with them too. There's a difference of answering and leading, right? Go ahead.
Well, since Dan and Don have both written books, I probably could write a book about this one. I think that when it comes to success, like, we can talk about it as professional success and success in your career, but I think my generation looks at success as being the whole picture. It's all kind of integrated. And so it's like the flexibility, yes, but it's also just kind of the autonomy to be able to do things in the way that you kind of fail forward, if you will, learn from your own mistakes, kind of figure out the roadmap for yourself without, here's the exact process and formula to follow. It's interesting. I love talking to my friends about this. I'm always doing the market research and texting them as to, kind of how are things going from one industry to the next and one city to the next. But I think ultimately success, being 30 years old, like, for me, it's just wanting to have the ability to achieve all the things that I want to achieve in my professional career as well as my personal life, and not let either one of them fall off. And I think that that's something that I just was totally ingrained in me, and I really value, and so do most of my peers, I'd say. Whether or not that's different than, the generations ahead of me, I don't know. But I certainly think that, we operate a little bit differently just than some of the generations that have come before us. And I think that can be challenging at times, but it's also something that I drink that Kool-Aid too. So
I think you get to operate with a lot more knowledge than, like, my generation, right? Like, you get to see a lot more options than I ever even knew were out there.
Totally.
Right. And so there's a huge advantage for, like, you, and then even my kids have get to see more than you got to see, right? Where it's just kind of exciting because you get to make a lot more of those decisions for yourself and see yourself in a lot of different roles or places that maybe I didn't get to see, right? Like I saw nurses and
Right.
very few women I knew, and I'm not even that old, were working, but there wasn't the internet. I'm one of those zillennials or whatever they're starting to name us, right?
Zennial.
What is it called?
It's a zennial. You and Don kind of fall into that world, but also your kids are around the same age as well. So, but yeah, zennial is an older millennial.
Where you grew up without the technology, but then adapted the technology. Right
Yeah,
there.
if you had the AOL dial-up, if you know that noise,
Yeah.
that is or Oregon Trail, and so the loop is millennial, but Top Gun is kind of a zennial.
I think, and I'm somewhere in between the two because you're speaking my language, which is also just fascinating. It's like Instagram wasn't a thing when I was in college, and then now that's everything, and people 2 years behind me, it's fascinating. But, and even as a customer success manager, Aaron, like to your point earlier, that role didn't exist when I was, considering what my career path looked like. So it's wild. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, Sadie, I was the first class ever on Facebook, and now I'm the oldest class on it. So it went from like being the first, but now everyone younger than you is not on Facebook.
There's nothing more depressing than finding your year when you're signing up for something anymore, right? Like you're like scrolling for me.
Yeah.
I do want to say something to the answer of Sadie, just because I found this really interesting. TikTok last week, I always give little marketing tips on the show. It's not a marketing show, but TikTok last week started rolling this out for more. It was in beta test for a while, but they've now made it to where you can make your caption 5,500 characters versus 300. And that is because everybody under 30 is using TikTok versus Google. They're switching over to TikTok for all their searches versus Google. So all of you over 30 like me, and I've been talking about TikTok forever and you thought I'm crazy, get on it, because that is where they're going to age in to being our customers. And that's where they're learning to search for stuff, because they want quick video content. They don't even want to read about it anymore. So get over there on TikTok, use your keywords, your hashtags, all of those. All right, Scott, we've got 8 minutes left. I'm going to let you do my least favorite part of the show. Usually I try to run out of time, guys, but we've got time. So Scott's going to ask a stupid icebreaker. He's going to make it as least possible stupid as possible. Please, Scott, make it a decent one, not a food one. And then we'll just ask these icebreakers. They're his favorite part of the show.
So I always ask someone this question, and Aaron's heard it a million times, but I always ask if someone inspired you or motivated you.
I don't like that way you ask it, though. Those both sound good. So like pissed you off to where it like just motivated you is what he means. Or did they inspire you because they were so amazing to you?
Yep, exactly right. See, this is me. Aaron's way better at this than I am. So Sadie, did someone inspire you or motivate you? Did they make you mad, or did they want you to be great? And obviously you don't share their name.
Wait, so is this just like life in general?
Life. I always think from a business standpoint, that's where Aaron and I go, but it could be in life in general. It doesn't.
And you have a minute and a half, so it's a super deep question for a minute and a half. Go ahead.
Wow. I would say, I've been inspired more than I've been pissed off. I've been inspired by people. I've been pissed off at businesses which are not people ultimately, that, I've been laid off before after absolutely killing having a great quarter, and only to turn around and the company be right size. Pretty hard not to be angry about that, but I'd say I'm inspired like every day, just being around smart people, having good conversations such as this one. That's generally what fuels me.
So Dan, did someone make you mad to spur you on to start your own business, or did someone inspire you?
Well, a couple of things. I've got two people I'm going to say them really quick. So one is Sister Dorothy from high school, and she was the only person that ever told me I was a good writer. And after I started writing books, I realized, I wonder if she's still alive. And I found her, and she was in a retirement community in Wisconsin somewhere. And I was up there for a speaking engagement. I went and saw her. And I still can't believe this is true. She says, "You're the only student that's ever come back to me to say thank you." She was in her 80s. I just can't believe that. But I was still really inspired that I got to see her. And then the other person was my first job. I had a computer science degree, and that wasn't a good fit for me, but I didn't know at the time. And this guy hired me to supposedly program computers, and he kept trying to get me to sell, and I quit because he pissed me off. I mean, I'm like, I did not go to school all day to sell stuff, and for 4 years. So I left, and then come to find out, he was right. So he saw something to me I didn't see in myself. But anyway, I did try to track him down recently, and he's passed. So there you go.
That's amazing that you, that's a whole nother level to this conversation is tracking people down to say thank you. Don, that's interesting. You got a couple turning points in your world, but who inspired you, or did someone make you mad for your first gig out of school?
Yeah. That's an interesting question, because I did have some heartache at times, but I don't know if that's what was the thing that really motivated me. That I've really just been inspired by people, and like Sadie said, just inspired by the great people around me. I've always had people who have seen me and have called out things that I didn't actually readily pay attention to. And Dan talking about somebody from his past, I was like, it reminded me of my first grade teacher, Mary Gulick. I actually connected with her after 25 years because she was on Facebook, and I hit her up, and then we ended up having a coffee. And it was just inspiring to see somebody who saw something in me back then and to be proud of me at that time. And then the other person that's really inspired me indirectly, but directly, was my own mother. And that's because single mom, 4 kids. She did her thing. I watched her. She had at least 3 jobs all the time through our childhood, but she always told me to follow my heart. And I didn't even really get that as much until I was really just like less than 5 years ago, where I had to call my mom, because I was like, when I launched this company, I recognized that that's what I was doing, was like living from the inside out. And I realized the significance of that kind of encouragement that she just over and over again, she would just look at me and say, follow your heart, follow your heart. And it's been the thing that has allowed me to feel like I have a beautiful, great life in spite of whatever the circumstances were. So I feel inspired by that. And then getting reflected back to me, the things that people see in me in any given time has been really what spurs me on.
Hey, can I just make a comment about Don? It's positive. You think you're not past testimony. I think you're way past testimony. And the term that I heard Aaron say was better or bitter, and you are definitely a better man.
Absolutely.
You.
Thank you.
You're past testimony. You're not. It's not that you're not there. You're past it.
I mean, you might have a bigger testimony though.
Mm-hmm.
Scott and I both do better when we're pissed off at people. We already know that.
Got a little rebellious child in you.
I will tell you, Scott, though, these past 6 weeks, I think I'm changing. I've had a rough 6 weeks or whatever, but I still talk to Les Brown all the time. He's still, and in every call with Les is so inspiring that I'm starting to get a little bit more of that inspired, right? A little less of the pissed off, a little bit more inspired. And speaking of inspired, the Steve Harvey jump video, did you ask him about that? Because that's my favorite video of all time. If you guys haven't watched it, that's all I would have talked about him with, Don, when I was there, if I was you. All right, Scott, you got any last things? Otherwise, we're going to wrap up.
You got to be persistent, have a ton of grit, just like everyone on this panel, to be inspired or to get mad, because you have to be in the ring to get beat up. So, but yeah, persistence and grit obviously will spur those things on. What about you to close it out, Aaron?
Well, I was just going to say thank you to Bank of Blue Valley and Burns McDonnell. And I was going to say thank you so much to our panel. We really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you to everyone that watched. We didn't get a ton of comments, but I saw there was a bunch of people watching. So next time, get up in here, because then we pull it up and people see what you're doing. Tons of people do business over there. So thank you so much. You want to rewatch this episode, it'll be on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the places. Thank you, panel. Stick on for 1 second with me, and we will see you guys same time, same place next week. Have a great week.